The fog hung thick over Moscow, curling around the Soviet-era buildings like a shroud. The streets were desolate, the air sharp and biting. Each breath felt like inhaling shards of ice. The city loomed, a ghost of its former self, with shadows whispering secrets from the past. It was a night that promised nothing good. He stepped out of the cab, the driver's eyes narrowing as he sped away, leaving him alone. The cold gnawed at his skin. He pulled his coat tighter, feeling the weight of his mission pressing against his chest. Viktor Ivanov, oil magnate, rumoured to be involved in something far darker than mere business. He had to find the truth. The art gallery was a beacon in the fog, its lights flickering like distant stars. He pushed through the heavy doors, entering a world of elegance and pretense. The air was warm, but it did little to thaw his bones. People mingled, their laughter echoing against the high ceilings, but he felt out of place. He was here for answers, not art. And then he saw her, Irina. She stood by a painting, her figure striking against the backdrop of cold hues. Her hair fell like dark silk, framing a face that was both alluring and unsettling. She caught his gaze and smiled, a knowing smile that sent a shiver down his spine. He approached, drawn in by an invisible thread. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said, her voice a melody that danced through the air. He nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He needed to focus. "I'm here for Viktor Ivanov," he said, trying to keep his tone steady. Her smile faded, replaced by something darker. "Many are. Few leave unchanged." A chill ran through him. He was about to ask what she meant when she stepped closer. The scent of her perfume enveloped him, intoxicating yet suffocating. "Come with me," she said, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Against his better judgment, he followed her. They slipped through a hidden door, descending into the depths of the gallery. The atmosphere shifted, the air thick with anticipation. They entered an underground bar, dimly lit and filled with the low hum of conversation. It felt like a different world, one where shadows danced with secrets. Irina led him to a secluded corner. He could feel the weight of her gaze, both inviting and predatory. "What do you know about Viktor?" she asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Enough," he replied, his heart racing. "He's involved in something dangerous." She leaned in closer, her breath warm against his ear. "Dangerous is an understatement. You have no idea what you're getting into." He felt a thrill mixed with dread. There was something magnetic about her, something that pulled him deeper into her orbit. He tried to shake the feeling, to remind himself of his mission. But with every passing moment, the lines blurred. Hours slipped away as they talked, the bar fading into the background. Irina spun tales of power and corruption, her words laced with seduction. He was captivated. The more he listened, the more he lost sight of his purpose. But a nagging feeling lingered, the way she spoke, the glint in her eyes. It was as if she was playing a game, and he was merely a pawn. "Let me show you my apartment," she said suddenly, her voice low and inviting. He hesitated. The fog outside thickened, wrapping the city in a blanket of uncertainty. But curiosity gnawed at him, and he found himself nodding. Her apartment was a reflection of her, luxurious yet decaying. The walls were adorned with art, but the paint peeled in places, revealing the cold concrete beneath. The air felt heavy, charged with an unspoken tension. "Make yourself at home," she said, pouring 2 glasses of vodka. He took a seat, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The shadows in the corners seemed to shift, whispering secrets he couldn't understand. Irina joined him, her presence both comforting and unsettling. They drank, the vodka burning down his throat. With each sip, his resolve weakened. He was losing himself in her allure, her laughter echoing in his mind like a haunting melody. "What do you really want?" he asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. She paused, her expression shifting. "What do you think I want?" He couldn't answer. The truth was, he didn't know. The longer he stayed, the more he felt like he was losing himself. The fog outside thickened, and the city seemed to fade away, Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Irina's smile vanished. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice low and dangerous. His heart raced. "What do you mean?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she stood and walked to the window, staring out into the fog. He could see her reflection, a ghostly figure against the glass. The city loomed behind her, dark and foreboding. He felt a surge of panic. He needed to leave, but something held him back. A deep-seated fear, a sense of impending doom. "Victor is not who you think he is," she said suddenly, her voice sharp. "He's dangerous, and he knows you're here." His stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're in over your head." He rose, ready to confront her. "Why are you telling me this?" She turned, her eyes blazing. "Because you're not the first to come here, and you won't be the last." The air crackled with tension. He could feel the walls closing in. The shadows in the corners grew darker, more menacing. "Get out," she said, her voice trembling, "before it's too late." He hesitated, caught between fear and fascination. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something shift. A flicker of desperation. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because I can't protect you," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." The fog outside surged, pressing against the windows like a living thing. He felt the panic rise within him. He needed to escape. But as he turned to leave, he heard a sound. A low, rumbling growl that reverberated through the walls. "What was that?" he asked, his heart pounding. Irina's face paled. "It's him!" He felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Who?" But before she could answer, the door burst open. A figure loomed in the doorway, shrouded in darkness. "Victor!" Irina breathed, her voice trembling. He stood frozen, caught between the two of them. The figure stepped forward, and the room seemed to shrink. "Did you think you could escape?" Victor's voice was smooth, but it dripped with menace. Irina stepped back, her eyes wide with fear. "I didn't mean to—" But he cut her off. "You brought him here." The atmosphere thickened, suffocating. The shadows twisted and writhed, as if alive. "Run," Irina whispered, her voice barely audible. But he couldn't move. The weight of dread held him in place. Victor smiled, a chilling smile that sent ice through his veins. "You're in my world now." The room spun. Panic surged through him. He turned to Irina, searching for an escape, but she was gone. The shadows swallowed her whole. He was alone, trapped in a nightmare. The walls closed in, and he could feel Victor's presence looming over him. "Welcome to Moscow," Victor said, his voice dripping with malice. And in that moment, he knew he was never leaving. The fog outside thickened, wrapping around him like a serpent, squeezing the breath from his lungs. He was lost in the darkness, consumed by the chilling realization that he had stepped into a world from which there was no escape. Irina's laughter echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of what he had lost. And as the shadows closed in, he understood the true meaning of obsession. It wasn't about desire. It was about being trapped in a web of fear, unable to break free. In Moscow, the night never truly ended.